You're juggling it all: work, family, decisions, expectations, 6 hats, maybe more every single day. But behind the scenes, your body is running on stress, and stress left unchecked will lead to illness. I'm Dr. Shami, an integrated family doctor, and this is 6 Hats, the podcast that helps you understand what stress is doing to your body and what you can do about it now. Hello, welcome everyone back to the 6 Hats podcast. Now, today's episode is an important one, and it's for the men. Now, menopause affects every woman, but it also deeply affects relationships, families, and the emotional connection between partners. Yet many men feel confused, helpless, or unsure how to respond when their partner begins to change. So in this episode, I'm joined by Dr. Baljit Rana, menopause and hormonal wellness coach and founder of MenoBloom Wellness Coaching in Melbourne. Now, Baljit brings decades of experience in psychology, coaching, and women's hormonal health, offering compassionate, practical support for women navigating perimenopause and menopause. Together, we're going to explore what menopause really is, why symptoms happen, what men may notice, and most importantly, how they can offer meaningful support. Because menopause is not anyone's fault, it's a biological transition, and understanding it can transform relationships. So welcome, Baljit.
Hello, Shami. Thank you so much for having me. It's a great pleasure to be here to discuss this very important topic.
Oh my God, we were just talking about it. And I was talking about menopause in a group setting with male friends. And it was just really interesting what came across, because I've got a good friend and he's been through a divorce and he's in his 50s. And he goes, "Oh, I wish I knew more. I wish I knew more in my early 50s when my ex-partner was going through it, and I would have reacted very differently." And, he's in a new relationship now, but he's got this knowledge behind him. And I was just thinking, how many more men can really benefit from this? And more importantly, that would just transform the woman's journey, because often they're not understanding what's going on and they're reacting to these hormonal changes. And it happens so transiently. It's not like one morning you wake up and it's all there. It's almost, there's little pieces of the puzzle that come together. And it's really hard to sort of communicate, is this menopause? Is this perimenopause? So this is why this podcast is so important. So Baljit, shall we start with what menopause actually is in simple terms for men listening?
You've summarized it really well. The opening is definitely setting the scene as to why we need to talk about this, not in a very proactive way, in a very educational, with just useful information. If we start off with the basics, that men then, like you quite rightly mentioned, can support their partners as well and just be across that as to what that looks like. So we'll start with talking, just in simple terms, what's going on. It is definitely hormonal shifts that are happening for women. Obviously, they are, like you mentioned, it could be quite sort of transient in terms of the start of it. The onset could be women are in their 40s. It could be sooner due to other medical conditions. On average, that's the age it starts, and it can last about 4 to 6 years, but it can even go up to 10 years. And essentially what's happening is it's the precursor, the stage where before entering into menopause, it's the perimenopause stage, which is where there's a lot of fluctuations going on. And that typically happens between 45 to 55 years of age. But like I said, it can happen sooner. So this is where there is actually, in terms of hormones, it's actually described as a neuroendocrine medical condition, because it's impacting on the body, the brain, and in terms of, it's basically, perimenopause is our body's heightened stress response, but it can affect energy, focus, memory, patience, stamina, and tolerance to stress. So what's going on, if we look at this from a biological point of view and hormonal point of view, the actual estrogen and progesterone that regulate are quite a few things for women: mood, the quality of sleep, memory and focus, like I mentioned, the stress response and energy levels, and our emotional connections. So they're going through a period of like a crisis and chaos, and they're fluctuating during this period of perimenopause. So really, one big thing that's happening is it's affecting the way that women are emotionally regulating themselves, and that's then gets obviously what men and partners can see. So essentially that's what's going on in this perimenopause stage leading up to menopause. And like you mentioned earlier, Shami, it's not like overnight the switch goes on. Menopause happens. It's this period of perimenopause that we as women and men need to be educated about and aware of to then catch those symptoms and be aware of, actually, yeah, it's not a case of, you're just stressed or you're anxious or you're depressed or, other things going on. Also important to recognize is this is a time in women's lives where they have heightened levels of responsibilities and caring going on. The six hats are going on for children and often also for older family members. They have work pressures. They're probably at the peak of their career, financial pressures, and the domestic load of that, what they have to do and carry. So it's a very, very, very critical time that they're dealing with these and juggling and balancing all of these roles and responsibilities. And then you've got the hormone fluctuations going on.
That's awesome. I love the way you describe it because it really looks at the different symptoms. Now, from a man's perspective, what changes tend to be most confusing or confronting?
Yeah, I think that's really important to note. They may notice that I think the first ones is like the mood, the mood up and down, fluctuations in the mood, being happy and low, and perhaps they might see them feeling hot and sweaty all of a sudden, and they may think she's having a panic attack or she's in all night sweats, and also an anxiety, feeling quite anxious, things that didn't bother them before perhaps are bothering them now, and there could be also forgetfulness, like, women saying, where's this? Where have I put my keys? And, and that sort of thing going on too. So that's definitely pretty common for those types of symptoms that women will show, and the partner will pick up on that. So this is the range of symptoms in a nutshell in terms of the mood, the sleep as well. They'll notice perhaps their sleep is disturbed as well, that they're getting up all of a sudden that they're never used to, having a very broken sleep, and then they're feeling anxiety as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think we underestimate that mood shift. In my experience, like seeing patients, wow, mood can dip so low that you're thinking you've got severe depression or you've got severe anxiety. And it's really interesting because we can focus on that mental health and not put the pieces of the puzzle together and go, wow, this is menopause. And this is the time for change. And often you may not have had any history of mental health conditions at all. And all of a sudden it changes. And it's like what we were saying, it's that transition. So you might find a bit irritable, having arguments with the partner and getting angry. I hear that a lot.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, just dealing with anxiety, because as the woman, you're trying to navigate that as well. And you're looking for a release, you're looking for someone to co-regulate. And, you're comfortable in this relationship. So you may take it out on your partner and you may feel at ease to release all these symptoms. So in that situation, Baljit, what's your advice?
Oh, so very good. This is where a lot of my clients come to me. I actually even have sessions with the husband and the wife at some point during their coaching journey, because then it is a case of, unfortunately, because of this, seeing that their partner's not how they used to be in terms of, getting things done quickly. Perhaps they're just like saying, what's going on with you? And just, perhaps they're not wording it properly in terms of the nice sort of empathetic way and caring way. I think a lot of the time they wouldn't put it down to menopause, like you quite rightly said. The woman themselves are don't realize that's what's going on, and they do perhaps think that they're going through mental health challenges. The key things I think for men are just to sort of really check in and just understand that obviously they need to be educated first, so they need to be listening to podcasts like this, reading the books, and also going to medical appointments with their partners as well. So the tips would be, obviously they need to look out for those symptoms if we understand what the range of symptoms look like that we've just mentioned. And also it is a very individual journey as well. I must say that it's not going to be the same for everybody. There are other factors, and some people may not experience it to the extent that others do. What they must look out for is, are there shifts and changes in some of those things we mentioned, the sleep, the mood, anxiety, and just sort of checking in and just just saying, what's going on, talking about her to her directly. What are you feeling? What are you experiencing? And with no judgment, listening compassionately. A lot of the time, men feel this is, again, their nature in terms of the way that we're, the nurturing for women and compassionate. They feel that they have to keep doing that and that demands that. But for men, it's about how can I fix you? How can I put you back together again? Because they might say, well, you're not the same anymore. And, you look like, what's happening? Get your shit together by type of thing, sometimes. But it is a case of actually validating experiences, letting her talk and just, just hearing and understanding openly with no judgment and compassion. Listen. And when she's saying, I'm just not feeling myself, and just say, well, in what way? Why you're not feeling yourself? And, day to day, maybe you can check in on her and ask her what sort of support she may need. And it could be really small things like just giving her a hug or, and being patient when they notice that some memory things are happening or some issues where they've forgotten things or fatigue or shifts are coming from. Just to make the really important point, I think if all men understand this is not a personality shift, that they've created, that the person they knew when they first married them or were into a relationship with them, it's a hormonal shift. And if they understand the big influence that progesterone and estrogen have on controlling all of those things that we've talked about, obviously is going to be, and the woman desperately is trying to recalibrate all of her nervous system. So, of course, she's going to feel, not only is she going to feel it herself, like biologically, emotionally, physiologically, psychologically, but then knowing with the way women are, we always think about how that's, coming across to other people, and whether it's their partners, their children, or their other family members, they'd feel the huge pressure of, I need to sort myself out. I need to sort myself out. I have to put on a front. And then they're blocking those feelings and emotions, whereas they really need to be expressing them openly to their partners. This is how I'm feeling. And I don't want you to fix me. This is medical, and it's something going on in the brain too. And it's just making them feel emotionally safe. They need to regulate their emotions, like you said earlier, within themselves internally and with the support of the person who's seeing them day to day as well, because they'll notice it more than ever.
I think that's such valuable advice, more than we think, because I believe a lot of partners are just lost on how to even navigate. Where do you even start?
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, when you see the partners, the men, do they find it hard to talk about emotions?
Yes, they definitely do, because they want to give it a label or a category. Okay, so what is it? Menopause, right? What do we do? Do we get drugs for that, or do we get what does that look like? So in terms of unraveling the emotions as to when the woman is actually saying, there's a really good. I'll give you some examples of some women that have come to me when they say, the wife might say, I'm just so tired, I can't even think straight. I don't feel like myself. Everything's so overwhelming. I feel so angry and I'm edge on all of the time. So the partner will be thinking, hold on, why is she so irritable? Why is she pulling away from me? What did I do wrong? So it's nothing personal. It's perimenopause that they're going through. So, as a starting point, if they start to recognize that and some of the things and listening, with compassion and the emotions, and it's very important. I must say that as much as the women in this need to voice their experiences, their symptoms and their emotions, the men too, they need the support too, as to then they feel like they're trying to do the best they can as well. And it's a two-way process. So the strategies are going to be something that they're doing in tandem with each other, recognizing it's something that's not anyone's fault. No one's at blame. And some things we can control, some other things we can't control. So, there's a lot of tips and things out there. Jean Hell's have put together a lot of resources, and there's a lot of, even the UK and in Australia. Fortunately, there's a lot more research done on this. Is quite a lot. I've done quite a lot of evidence-based research. I've done a bit of a review on that, and it's just like, it's pretty good that there are resources out there. But I think we just need to actually tell people more about them. There's a book that's just come out in the UK, literally is coming out, I think, today. He's a journalist who's come up, he's put together this book specifically for men, Joe Warner, and because he noticed that his wife was going through all of this stuff, and, then he spoke to Dr Louise Newson, who's in the UK doing a lot of stuff around this, and, just said, look, I think men need to be told, like, what this looks like, what it is for the women, to how they can support their partners, but also how men should be really feeling supported through this stage too. I think that's very important too. They should be speaking to, other people who are going through that, sharing their, stories and their tips, and even themselves listening to podcasts, books, reading books, being across that. So being patient with each other, feeling that you're being heard and validating each other is just really basics, really. I think that if you start off with those things, that's where then the emotions will come out, and then you can be more vulnerable or emotional or open and just say that it's okay. I get it. I understand what you're going through. And in the sessions, what I found is when they come together or individually, the woman on her own, and then she brings her husband, because I've heard it, like, my husband thinks this is going. And when they come together, their partner usually is like, oh, I get it now, because you really just spelt it all out to me now. Exactly. This is normal. The other women are going through that. It's not just my life, So, and just knowing that it's actually going to be, it'll change. It'll be managed, obviously, when they get the treatment and whatever. But the perimenopause stage is the one where they've really got to be patient and just understand that it's nothing that's personal.
And here's a tip, but no, actually some advice. So if a man says, actually, I think this is perimenopause, but his partner hasn't worked that out, how can they approach that conversation?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, really interesting one. So it's the other way around. It's like, yeah. So that'd be the ideal scenario. I think that'd be straight away. I think that gain. Perhaps it can come across perhaps as defense, maybe for the female to say, no, it's not. I'm all right. I'm just stressed out at the moment. I've just got a lot going on. So it could go either way. But I guess by having that education and that support and just checking it, could it be that? Then perhaps the best way to address that for both of them is to say, do you think we should go and have a chat with a medical practitioners such as yourself? So you're amazing to get to the holistic support offering and getting to the root of it, and in a very calm and compassionate way. And a lot of the time people just suffer in silence, or they get defensive about it and they don't reach out proactively. I think I keep saying that word because this stage is very, very important for the proactive help and support, rather than when it's all out of hand and it's all blown up, And I think if the partner's saying to the female in the relationship, could it be this? I think women need to be openly and I think being really feeling validated and happy about that. The fact that, they're pointing out something that they may not have recognized because they may be so in the thick of it and they can't even find their way out of it. And, and I think a lot of the time women do need to have a bit of a diagnosis or a label on something. So, and it's just helping them just to get to the bottom of that as to what that is. Could it be this? Could it be that? And knowing the fact that if it's of that age that they're in, then of course it very likely is going to be that. So I think without saying it in a condescending way and, oh yeah, this is what's going on and let's just put you in a category in a very individual way that, could it be this? Let's see what that looks like for you. Do you want to talk about it with someone and try and get the help and support? Or maybe just like, with other couples, perhaps, get together on a social, do it in an informal way too, and maybe a husband's talking to each other, partners, and just saying, oh, I've heard about this. I've read this. Did you listen to this podcast? Probably drop it in. Did you listen to the podcast? I was really amazing on, finding it and learning about what women go through in perimenopause and menopause. It's a very important time, and and we really need to support them in that way. So I think that direct or indirect approach would work. And there are going to be women who may be defensive about it to say, "What are you trying to say?" But I think it's just to show that there's something that they're listening and they're not being shut down about it. I think that's important.
Love that. Love that. So another good question, which a friend asked me to ask you, is
far away.
What not to do. So what some of the common mistakes men make?
Yeah, that's a really good one. Yeah, what not to do. Okay, yeah, definitely don't make judgments that you've made without even listening to her, giving her the chance to speak and say what she wants to say. Don't shut her down and not validate her experiences. Connection is really, really important. So obviously find those moments to connect and try and understand what you're feeling, what's changed for you, understanding that. And, I'm not going in with the let me fix it approach, because they're not going to be able to fix it. So I think understanding, not making assumptions, don't make any guesses, don't be dismissive, and something that might be small to you, the husband, the partner, may be very overwhelming to her. So if she's saying, this is really bothering me, I'm really affected by the fact that I keep forgetting things, or I'll go to a meeting and I'm just sitting there, I'm having this big rage of hot flushes going on and I'm so embarrassed. And, don't make her feel really, like it's something that's downplay it, or, and it's just her that's suffering with that, or get over it, it's not a big deal. Don't say things like that. And whatever you do, don't say, this is the worst one I get. Do not say, oh, you're not the same as you used to be. You've changed. I think they're the big ones. I think that's a real big no. Don't think that
Bullshit. Do women lose it?
do they? Oh no, don't get me started. Yeah. Oh my God, do they? Yeah. That's really not validating or being compassionate in any shape or form. And don't say, yeah, you need fixing, or, sort your shit out. Don't say things like that. You just got to go in with a very, calm, compassionate, validating, patient, and help her on that journey to seek the care and support she needs. Help her to feel emotionally safe. And don't try to correct her. No, it's not this. No, it's not that. You're feeling anxiety. Maybe you need to go on anti-anxiety. Maybe you need to depression. Try to choose, connection and validation over trying to just fix her, put her back together again.
I love that. And do you know what? It actually just reinforces what we said from the start, that this is a natural transition. There's no one to blame. She's not doing this on purpose. It's not a personality change. And you can't just suddenly fix it. It's a transition that the woman has to go through, and the men, having this level of awareness can support and actually make the journey so much more comfortable in comparison of just going through it alone. So I love these kind of conversations. So before we sort of round up for today, is there one message you want men listening today to remember? What would that be?
Oh, you know me, I'm not a woman of few words. So, one message out of all of this, I think the biggest one would be to get educated about it. Just be curious to learn more about it, and it's not in a non-judgmental, but like like you learn something new, and it's like be excited about it. Just say, oh, what's this about? Oh, yeah, and like I said, watch a podcast, watch a video, something short and sweet where they can just understand it a bit more, and talk to other male friends and family members, work colleagues. Just don't be afraid to talk about it.
I love that, because when you were mentioning about this awareness and talking about it, I don't think I've ever heard men talk about it with their friends. Just even growing up, definitely not.
No, definitely not.
Our
No.
generation. And it's almost like the woman goes through it alone in isolation, and they have to deal with it. The man just sort of continues on their life. And sometimes it's not even acknowledged. And I can see that in my parents' generation, just not even acknowledged. And we can
That's very
change that.
sad. Yeah.
Change that, and new conversations can happen, which can make life easy for everyone. And I think, when women go through that change, what I've heard a lot, they go, oh, do I actually still want to be with this person? And vice versa. And they come up with all these thoughts and, make decisions based on these thoughts, when in actual fact, they're going through the change and they're going through all these emotions. And, the outcome would be so different if they were going through it alone. Sorry, together, and really supportive partner to sort of help them on the journey. Wow. I think when I think
That's such an important point you make, Shami, right at the end as well. It's definitely, and what we've been talking about, how, proactively they can help and support each other and understand the symptoms. Education, information is powerful on this journey. You're in it together. Because sadly, unfortunately, I've had quite a few clients who come to me and they'll just say, I'm going through menopause. I'm at the peak, either peri or post-menopause, and I don't want to be with my husband anymore, because they just don't understand what I'm going through. And then you have to try and unravel it. Have you tried to talk to them about it? Have you tried to get them to understand what you're going through, what you're feeling? Because I think if women are just raw and just being very direct and blunt, and just like, don't beat around the bush, just say, this is what's going on with me, and it's very sad if it does get to that point of where then the relationship, they choose to end the relationship because they feel that they're not being supported, they're not being heard or validated or listened to, because they are impacted. And I also said, as I said earlier as well, the men also need to feel that not only did the men need to support and protect, the wife and the partner in the relationship to get her through journey, but the men also need to feel protected and supported too. So it's a two-way process. So it's not like you're the one that needs to be fixed, or let's focus on you and let's neglect me. That they need to do the same things. You know what we say to the women? Moving your body, prioritizing your sleep, your identity, all those things men need to do on this journey too, because what you don't want is then it goes the other way, the scales tip the other way. Then the male in the relationship is feeling burnt out because they feel they're carrying all of a sudden the load, and hormonally, physically, yes, the women are going through that. However, it's just obviously making sure that they're both feeling that they're on this journey together, and they're going to get through that, and they're going to support each other, whatever that looks like. Being open and just not being scared to say that. So don't do it alone. Don't feel isolated, because you don't need to.
Amazing. That's a beautiful couple of sentences to end on. Thank you so much for your time, Baljit. And where can our listeners find you?
Thank you so much for giving me this great opportunity to speak with you again. We always have an amazing chat. This is like some of the things I love talking about and passionate about. So yes, Menobloom, 43 Clendon Avenue, Malvern. I also do telehealth or face-to-face, and have a look at the website too, menobloomwellnesscoaching.au, and I'm on Instagram and Facebook too. Look forward to you. Yeah.
Just confirming, you see couples. So if
Yes.
look, I just want to bring my partner, I think
absolutely
work. I think this is just fabulous what you do.
Yeah, thank you. I'm also, prior to that though, do quite a few information sessions that are just no cost. Just to put information is key, where it's valuable, and no cost need to be involved in that, where they just raising the awareness, just talking about it, and then becomes a topic of conversation. And then people, if they need obviously to come for sessions individually with the couples themselves, then yes, that's the next step really. So yes, that's part of the journey.
Fantastic. Thank you, Baljit.
Thank you so much, Shami. Keep doing what you're doing. Amazing work. Love this podcast. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Six Hats, where it's all about progress, not perfection. If this episode spoke to you, don't wait, hit follow now, leave a quick review, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Want to take your next step today? Download my ebook. The link is waiting in the show notes. And remember, this is general advice only. Always speak to your practitioner for anything medical. See you next time.